Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good
I'm
evening.
Hassan Tawane, and I'm glad to be a member of this class. And me, I'm in Garissa at the moment. I traveled yesterday night,
Oh,
and I'm now in Garissa town. I'm
yes.
also willing to travel back to Nairobi tomorrow at
Wow.
5 a.m. And I'm so glad to be in this class, and I pass my greeting to the rest of the class.
Wonderful.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Hassan. Thank you. Good. Good.
Sorry, Eminence, I missed the greetings as well because I was trying to put things in order.
Okay.
Sure, sorry for that.
That's fine.
Yeah, home greetings from Zambia. So excited to be part of this program as well. I thank you. Oh.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Right. In Africa, we keep greeting one another and greeting, which is a good thing. It is a good thing. It is a good thing. Wonderful. We have several people here. We have Mary. Mary, please bring us greetings. We have Nelly. We have Samuel Karanja. Please bring us greetings.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm Samuel Karanja Mwangi. Your Eminence, I'm very grateful to join this class today. I'm very ready to learn. God bless you and do you good. I'm happy.
Thank you. Welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Your Eminence.
Good evening, Nelly.
And my fellow leaders in the class. I'm so excited to be back to this class. I'm really learning a lot and enjoying the whole program. May God bless you. May God give you the wisdom and the grace to teach us through. I'm so grateful.
Amazing. Thank you very much. God bless. God bless. Thank you for that. Yes, I think we finish our greetings now and get to class. Allow me to share the module. So we've been looking at module 1. What is humanitarian diplomacy? The Vice President, International Institute of Humanitarian Law, Deputy Permanent Observer, the Order of Malta in Geneva, Professor Webster, University of Geneva, describes what really humanitarian diplomacy is. So we saw the definition, and then we saw that humanitarian diplomacy is persuading decision makers and opinion leaders to act at all times in the interest of the vulnerable people and with full respect of fundamental humanitarian principles. And we saw what humanitarian principles is. We saw the policy refers to the signpost. Number 1, we have a responsibility to persuade. Persuading with appropriate diplomatic tools and actions, focusing on areas of knowledge and expertise, engaging at appropriate times with the partners outside the movement or outside the organization. We also saw every single signpost. Of course, our role model in this course is International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, and also the United Nations. That is the Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs. Again, we went down and then we saw the scope, that is the humanitarian diplomacy policy, the responsibilities, performance evaluation of the policy, and yesterday we saw the aims of humanitarian diplomacy. But before we go that, I always like sharing about the principles, which are very amazing, that are adopted by the United Nations. They were adopted by the United Nations. Let me share that on the screen from the International Federation of the Red Cross. As you can see, the description is very clear. What are the humanitarian principles, their origins, and implementation? So we saw the principles, centrality to the work of Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs and other humanitarian organizations is formed, enshrined in 2 General Assembly resolutions. The first, free, humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. And we saw the description of that and the work of OCHA or OCHA. The OCHA's mission is to mobilize, coordinate humanitarian principles, to promote humanitarian community compliance with the humanitarian principles. We saw that, and that was really indeed amazing. Let me close this. So let me go back. And then we saw, let me just share the screen again. Down here, we saw the aims of humanitarian diplomacy. Just a quick one, because we've been going through obtain access to the victims to evaluate their situation, ensure the necessary degree of protection and assistance towards them. Again, we saw negotiate visas for humanitarian actors, negotiate establishment, logistical and financial mechanism. We went that. Tonight, we want to see the objectives. What objectives will effective humanitarian diplomacy achieve? What objectives will effective humanitarian diplomacy achieve? Number 1 is more frequent consideration by decision makers and opinion leaders of the interests of vulnerable people. More frequent considerations by decision makers and opinion leaders of the interests of vulnerable people. Number 2, so which means the more you interact with opinion leaders, the people in authority. This can be government leaders, influential business leaders, anybody in position of influence and leadership. So you have a more consideration for your observations and your opinions. And then greater access to and influence with the decision makers, greater humanitarian access and space for national societies and international federation, strong visibility for public and public understanding of the Red Cross and Red Crescent activities. Of course, Red Cross and Red Crescent is a role model. And then strong capacity to mobilize all relevant resources. Without anybody knowing you, you need strong capacity. If anybody knows you and you can't be able to connect yourself, you're not able to mobilize resources or relevant resources. Another point is facilitation of effective partnership when responding to the needs of the vulnerable. Facilitation of effective partnership when responding to the needs of the vulnerable. Most of you have done humanitarian work for many years in different ways. You have assisted people, you have evacuated people, you have done humanitarian aid, humanitarian assistance from the religious circle, from the professional circle. Like yesterday, we saw Dominic here, and Dominic's holding a very, very congratulations, Dominic. I think, Dominic Obadia, I saw some of you are among the people, we call them, I saw somewhere about best diplomats. That is really very good. And congratulations for the work you're doing. So strong capacity to mobilize all relevant resources and facilitation or effective partnership when responding to the needs of the vulnerable. It is only through the establishment of humanitarian diplomacy as an integral part of the day-to-day work with the necessary capacities in place. Now listen to this. It's only through the establishment of humanitarian diplomacy. It's only through the establishment of humanitarian diplomacy as an integral part of the day-to-day work with the necessary capacities in place. So you need the capacities in place. That humanitarian objectives referred above can be effectively realized. The fundamental aim of this policy is to establish humanitarian diplomacy as a permanent mindset across all national societies and the International Federation. You see that? Only the objectives of sin, the aims of sin, they need what you call necessary capacity. We have a necessary capacity in place. Very important. The fundamental aim of this policy is to establish humanitarian diplomacy as a permanent mindset across all national societies and the International Federation. Now remember, humanitarian diplomacy is not a business. It's about meeting the humanitarian need during armed conflict or disasters or during the pandemic. And remember, humanitarian diplomacy is recognized in Geneva Convention, Protocol 1 and Protocol 2. And that is where we get humanitarian chaplains. That is where we get humanitarian negotiators and everybody to do with humanitarian work. So the fundamental aim of this policy is to establish humanitarian diplomacy as a permanent mindset across all national societies and the International Federation. So it is humanitarian diplomacy since it's humanitarian work. It is not an enterprise. It is not a business. It's about humanity. And that is why we have the 4 humanitarian principles: humanity, independence, impartiality. Very, very important. And all that. So it is the decision to engage in humanitarian diplomacy is not a choice, but a responsibility. It is a responsibility that flows from the privileged access enjoyed by the national societies as auxiliaries to the public authorities in the humanitarian field. Now, also in the humanitarian field, this becomes or plays a very, very big opportunity for us. It flows from the independence of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. And remember, from the breadth of each humanitarian activities, remember, the Red Cross and Red Crescent movements, those were not, they are not actually, they are intergovernmental organizations. And that is why in every country you'll almost realize that the president or the patron for International Federation of Red Cross, the patron is normally the president of the republic. So it was founded by intergovernmental organizations focusing in the areas of humanitarian sector. It is a responsibility, its humanitarian activities across the globe, it's community-based with tens of millions of volunteers. And the observer status at the United Nations General Assembly enjoyed by the International Federation and the International Committee of the Red Cross. Now, the responsibility is logical extension of the commitment of national societies and the International Federation to the fundamental principles of humanity, a commitment that is accepted worldwide as prevailing above all others because of its linkages or linkage to international humanitarian law. The statutes of the movement and the International Federation Constitution. An organization of this kind with its unique potential to exert considerable influence on decision makers across the world has a manifest responsibility to do so. As the essential characteristic of the Red Cross, Red Crescent, is to act, not to remain passive. This policy urges action on the part of international federation and the national societies. So the organization are registered either as a society or either as a trust or a foundation, but they are all societies that measures up to the responsibility. Next week we'll be jumping on what we call the historical examples of humanitarian diplomacy. But I want to remind the class a couple of things when we talk about the humanitarian diplomacy. Let me share the comprehensive international humanitarian law that I've been sharing with the class. Look here. So the international humanitarian law becomes a very important policy and law that all humanitarian organization or anybody involved in humanitarian diplomacy should get to avail. And remember, the international humanitarian law is not the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. No, they are totally different. When we go next week on historical examples of humanitarian diplomacy, you'll distinguish a difference between the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is away from the international humanitarian law, which was founded across 1860. But the International Universal Declaration of Human Rights was just studied in 1948. I think it's 48 or 49. Let me just bring that on the screen so that you can be able to understand where your privilege really lies. Let me share that on the screen again. Next week, we'll be looking at historical examples. And let me bring this on the screen. You see here, historic examples of humanitarian diplomacy. So it was founded, actually it was a procedure by Henry Dunant. Henry Dunant was a business person. So you'll understand that the international humanitarian law had a codification in each part. But in the Geneva Convention in 1948, as you see on the screen, is where there was a Declaration of Human Rights there. So we have to really differentiate between the international humanitarian diplomacy and the international humanitarian law. So for you leaders, let me share with you in the group. I'll be opening this WhatsApp group. But what I want to share with the class is the international humanitarian law. I want to show you free of charge so that you enjoy reading it, so that the time you're doing your class and your assignment, you really find a very easy time. Let me open this. But as it is opening, I would want just to continue a little bit, and then we'll be closing and then releasing our students to read the notes. You have in the week, you have between 7 to 10 hours to read at your own time. So which means every day you can read 1 hour. And I shared the other day about this law, especially when it comes to the wounded, the sick, and the shipwrecked, the medical and religious personnel. Let me grab here. Do you know that some of you who belong to religious organization, you have a very, very big autonomous opportunity to serve, and you are protected by the international humanitarian law. For example, medical and religious personnel, the wounded, the sick, the shipwrecked cannot be protected unless the medical and religious personnel coming to their aid also benefit from protection. The latter must have access to the wounded and the sick on the battlefield and must be protected against all acts of hostility and must be allowed to perform their medical or religious function without embedment, even if they fall into the power of the enemy. Look at that, very powerful thing. And even so, here in the international humanitarian law, it describes medical personnel, categories of medical personnel, and then our official assignments very spontaneous for charity organizations, and then religious personnel according to Geneva Protocol Additional Protocol 1. The term religious personnel refers to the military or civil persons such as chaplains who are exclusively engaged in the work of their ministry and who are permanently or temporarily attached to the armed forces, civil defense organization, medical units, medical transportation. So some of you come from different circles of that. You have protection for that. And then protection, duty to respect and protect. Personnel exclusively assigned to medical and religious duties must be respected and protected in all circumstances. This means that medical and religious personnel may not be directly attacked or threatened or hindered in their activities, but also that they in their particular role must be actively protected and supported by allegiance. The duty to respect and protect medical and religious personnel is not a personal privilege, but a derivative of a protection afforded to the wounded, the sick, and the shipwrecked. Therefore, medical and religious personnel lose their special protection, pursuant to the same principles as medical units, namely, if they commit outside humanitarian function, acts harmful to the enemy. You see that on the loose of the protection due to acts harmful to the enemy, you can see section 3(1)(c). Let's see charity. Let's see charity. People are doing charity right here. Only person who have been formally assigned to medical duties by the region party qualifying as medical personnel in the technical sense. Other persons performing medical functions are generally protected as civilians, but are not entitled to the use of distinctive emblems and not enjoy the special rights and privileges of medical personnel on the battlefield, or when they fall into the enemy's hand. This does not mean, of course, that modern international humanitarian law discourages the kind of spontaneous charity and humanitarian action that inspired Henry Dunant on the battlefield of Solferino. International humanitarian law even expressingly permits the civilian population and aid societies to collect and care for the wounded, sick, and shipwrecked on their own initiative. And if they do not in response to appeals by the belligerents, entitles them to protection and support them from all parties to the conflict. Without official assignment and supervision, however, they cannot be regarded as medical personnel within the meaning of the international humanitarian law. What is the meaning of this part C? It means that an organized personnel, a team or a group of volunteers doing charity activities, they are protected by the international humanitarian law. Leaders, you can see a deep, huge privilege for us to serve as humanitarians, providing our activities as leaders and volunteers in different ways, you know. And the other day, I also shared with the class how you can get your organization registered in the United Nations. So let me just go here at UNOCHA. Sorry, let me go on the screen again and do some Google with the class. Let me Google here. Your organization can register, and I want to share that in the class, very important. So you can go here and then say UNOCHA. Let's see, UNOCHA. UNOCHA NGO. Let's Google around and see what comes out. UNOCHA NGO, UNOCHA NGOs, NGO registration. Let's see. Then we go down. NGO. Let me use the right one. There is a lot when you want to learn about that, but I'm using NGO registration. How do I register with the OCHA, EDU, NOCHA? Registration form completed in English. A lot of details there. Copy of valid registration certificate of NGO. You know that. It is right even here. Let me just try to open and show us. Show the class. There is a lot of documentation here that you can need to check at your own given time. It gives eligibility and the guidance of what you really need as a humanitarian organization. You see that the requirements are here in a large way. The requirements are here in a large way. So it is important to realize that you can still make it. Leaders, I want to stop there for today. And because today is the end of the week, I would love to hear responses from the class, deep responses from the class here. If there is something you're benefiting from this class, if there is a note you're getting. James, good evening, sir. You're welcome. Yes, and Gitahi, it's good to see you, my sister. How are you today?
Thank you, sir.
Good. Anything you got from this class?
Thank you. I've come late.
Okay.
But I've been able to capture that when I'm doing humanitarian diplomacy, I'm protected by the humanitarian law.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
I captured that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very amazing point, really. I agree with you. You're already protected by the international humanitarian law. If you are helping the needy, you're not just protected in your country, you are protected by the international. So you have to do it with a great heart and proper documentation and following the set proper procedures. Very good. May I hear from Madam Mary? Reverend Mary, good evening.
Yes, His Eminence.
Yes. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Also, what has it's like what Anne has said, that you have also said that we have an opportunity to serve because we are completely, or we are protected by the international humanitarian law. So even in the church. Yes.
Yes. You have to really be careful with humanitarian diplomacy, because when you go to, let me share humanitarian principles. You have to be very careful when you're dealing with international humanitarian law, because there's a little bit of a challenge. Yes, you can serve as a religious person, but when you bring religion, you look like you're impartial. So you see these humanitarian principles here. You don't have to bring your religion, because there is humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. It's fine to serve with a religion, that is fine. But remember, you have just to be, because the people who are in need, they might not be church people. They might just be even people who have no faith in anything. So you have to know that the international humanitarian law require, then you don't have to be apolitical or political affiliated, neither economic affiliated. Neutrality, I want the class to read the notes. Independence, you see that. Look at this number 3, impartiality. Humanitarian action must be carried out on the basis of a need alone, giving priority to the most urgent cases of distress, making no distinction on the basis of nationality, race, gender, religious belief, class, or political opinions. The same to neutrality, that is impartiality. Humanitarian actors, these are the people that are going out to help the people and meet the need. Must not take sides in hostilities or engage in controversies of political, racial, religious, or ideological in nature. Now, the Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs, allow me to bring it here on the screen as we saw. Let me bring it here again. The Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs. This is, let me bring it here. Yes, UNOCHA. Let me just bring it. UNOCHA, the work of UNOCHA. Now, this organization that does the funding or distribution of the funding, when you have to align with their principles, neutrality, they call humanitarian principles, during your serving in emergency and others. By the way, let me just share direct about the principles. Let me see if I'll get the principles again, and they want to share those. The regulation is about the principles. Now you see, all OCHA activities are guided by the 4 humanitarian principles. And I want class to, you come in class with your notebook so that you can write, there's an exam, and that will helping you to answer so that you can do it properly. All OCHA activities, that is all Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs activities, are guided by the 4 humanitarian principles: humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. These principles provide foundations of framework, foundation for humanitarian action, foundation for humanitarian action, which means we need strong foundations. That is the basis of doing humanitarian work. If you will ever apply for funding, if you will ever sit at the United Nations General Assembly or under the World Humanitarian Summit, then you must be aware of these principles and walk by them. You don't try to pull people towards your faith or them to pull you towards their political affiliation, or you pull them to your political affiliation, or you show them that you're helping them, because it says the persuading decision makers to act at all times in the interest of the vulnerable people with the full respect of fundamental humanitarian principles. So you don't say, I have a lot of money, others I have to help the needy. We could have already missed the point. So strongly we have to differentiate about the human rights and the humanitarian diplomacy. So they are central to establishing, I'm reading here, and maintaining access to affected people, whether in a natural disaster or a complex emergency such as armed conflict. Promoting and ensuring compliance, this is very important. When you're doing humanitarian aid, humanitarian assistance, are we compliant? Very important. With the principles, with the set principles of the Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs. So, promoting and ensuring compliance with the principles are essential elements of effective humanitarian coordination. You can really do your work well if you know those principles. I just wanted to clarify to the class that. Good. Let me hear from Margaret. Margaret, what is your takeaway? By the way, before Margaret, I saw Dominic Obadia. You're welcome, sir. Anything you'd want to share? You are trying to, yeah, go ahead.
Hello, okay, sir.
Yes. Go ahead, Dominic.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity. From today's class, I've realized that when you do humanitarian diplomacy effectively, you're likely to get more visibility, yes, and you're likely to have a better engagement and also to negotiate for resources to be able to help the vulnerable. And the more you do it effectively, you're likely to be more frequently considered, because your work is standing out. That is what I have learned from this class. On the same note, I have a question, if you can allow me to ask.
Sure, go ahead.
On the humanitarian principles, the neutrality, humanity, impartiality, and independence. What about, some religions have a specific dressing code. Like if you're Muslim, you dress in your kanzu, and then if you're specific religion,
maybe Hindu, you put on a turban.
Yes. Will that not portray an image of trying to expose and sell your religion when you're serving, or how does that one apply?
Excellent question. You can still have your religion, but there is a very important point, whether you're putting on the turban, whether you're putting on the blue, the green, doesn't matter. But very important point here, we say, there is a point I wanted to read. He says, based on the need alone. Based on the need alone. The humanitarian diplomacy. I wanted to read that sentence, is coming away from the but let me see. They are central to establishing, maintaining access to affected people in natural disaster. So, okay, yeah. The Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs are guided by the four humanitarian principles: humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. These principles provide the foundation for humanitarian action. Now, when you're serving affected people, you're not even asking them, where do you come from, where are you going, or what are you doing? Doesn't matter whether you're putting on an apron for the driver, or whether you're putting on black specs, or whether you're putting on whatever you're putting on. But the most need that you're going out to do is you're focusing on the need and the need alone. That should be a highest level of focus in humanitarian diplomacy. And that is actually one of the most important points, that even if you're a man or a woman or whatever you are, you don't go to them because of your political affiliation or religious affiliation or what. No, you go to them specifically, even if you're a Buddhist or who you are, even if you're too rich, you just go there to meet the need alone, in line with the four core humanitarian principles, nothing else, because you're out to meet the humanitarian principle, the humanitarian need alone. I hope I've tried to answer your question, Dominic.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I've understood.
Very good. Very good. I'm missing that point, but I wanted to read something for you. Very nice. Let's hear from Margaret. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Your Eminence and my colleagues. Today I've learned about the effective objectives for an humanitarian diplomacy, what they have to achieve at long last. I've learned that they are the decision makers and the opinion leaders. That is what they consider mostly for the vulnerable people. Also, I've learned that they have a stronger capacity to mobilize resources and also to facilitate effective partnership and also to respond to the needs of the vulnerable.
Wonderful.
That's what
yes.
I learned for today.
Thank you. Yes,
and also it has sunk in my mind from today that there are 4 principles of humanitarian, and as you have said that we have to be impartial. It has to be impartial. It have to be, there's the humanity, independence, and the other one is neutrality. That one has sunk in my mind, and I think I'll be more effective when I'll be handling all after, at the end of the class, I'll be an expert.
Wonderful. I want you to imagine the work that you've been doing with the Nairobi at the airport. Right. So I want you to imagine with the work that you've been doing at the airports. And then when people land, you tell them, you're white, go this side, you're black, go this side. They'll be surprised. So race, religious is not considered at all. So if you want to be very effective, you serve humanity on the basis of a need alone. Wonderful, thank you. Let's hear from Bruce. You're welcome, sir. Good to have you this evening. And then we'll hear from Bilha, we'll hear from Samuel Karanja Mwangi.
Thank you so much, Your Eminence.
Yes, sir.
I have a contribution here and also a question, please.
Yes.
I think the contribution comes from what objectives will effective humanitarian diplomacy achieve. 7 objectives that are there.
Yes.
However, the statement now on the paragraph just after the objectives, it says that it is only, you know, what caught my attention is the word only, and you did emphasize that. It is only through the establishment of humanitarian diplomacy as an integral part of the day-to-day work of nation societies and international federation, with necessary capacities in place, that the humanitarian objectives referred above be effectively realized. That really caught my attention in terms of the statement that objectives, 7 objectives can be realized when there is an established humanitarian diplomacy as an integral part of of what we do, and capacities that are needed. That really caught my attention indeed, because the word only, caught my real attention in terms of how you did explain it here. And so I'm happy that I am doing humanitarian diplomacy, because explanation says quite a lot. And then the question comes in terms of yesterday. Yesterday, I had a little bit of electricity challenge. So here and there, my network was having a problem. And you spoke about 10 top 10 donor countries. And when I looked at that, I didn't see United States, I didn't see China, I didn't see some other nations kind of. And I wondered, why is the problem? What is the problem? I would have thought that United States could have been the #1 donor in that category, but United States is not there, China is not there, and some other big countries are not there. So, you know, I was left with a lot of questions on that.
Yes, wonderful. I think they are doing it, but it's good question to ask directly, because the UN hosts is hosted in New York, and that shows a big support. But yeah, it was right here. I remember when I shared the screen, it is right here, as you see on the screen. We have all these countries: United Kingdom, we have Sweden, name them, and when you scroll down, you can see Estonia, very small country there. Yes, I think I would like to invite ambassadors. And again, you can see private contribution. One person has contributed $10. That person is really blessed. And then there is a strategic plan here that you need to download, just go through and get benefit from that. But I would like some of the classes we have professors from Stanford University, but I would like to invite an ambassador to this particular class so that it would help us to answer some of those questions, because I'm not sure whether some are more political or what happens, but I would like to just get to understand from some of these major country leaders. And that would be a good question if you asked, especially at that particular time. Sorry for that screen. Well, thank you for asking, Bruce. Let's hear from Bilha. You're welcome, Madam Bilha.
Thank you so much.
Good. One thing you learned.
Good evening to you.
Good evening to us.
Yes, I've learned a lot concerning the objectives that human diplomacy seeks to achieve.
Yeah,
which
humanitarian.
have been mentioned by my colleague.
Yeah.
Yes, humanitarian diplomacy.
Yes.
Yes, and which have been mentioned. But well, I got interest in the humanitarian principles, which seems to be the foundations or the pillars of the humanitarian action.
Yes.
And especially the way you put it, that it's specifically need-based. I guess it was on impartiality. It's solely need-based, so that
Yes.
the humanitarian actor is not veering off on other things. But well, I believe we need probably more insight on this to understand in a more, in a way that
Yeah, I can't hear you.
in anything, so that we are able to probably get our ground ready as pertain to the foundation. Yes, I believe you were talking about yes, the principles, the humanitarian principles. But that point, it was I believe on impartiality. What it was basically, yes, humanitarian action in the basis of need alone. That's on impartiality.
Yes, on the basis of the need alone, right here. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yes, humanitarian action must be carried out on the basis of need alone, giving priority to the most urgent cases of distress and making no distinction on the basis of nationality, race, gender, religious belief, and all that. Sorry, somebody is trying to log in. Yeah, thank you, Bilha, for that. Samuel, you're welcome.
Thank you, Your Eminence.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm happy to understand about the humanitarian principles as adopted by United Nations. I have come to know that no matter how religious you are, you should not bring religion to the humanitarian diplomacy, because you should be neutral.
Yes.
And more so, it is good to know that it is need-based. Humanitarian actions must not be biased.
Yes.
Must be neutral. Must be impartial. Must be independent.
Yes.
And the profession. Yeah, that's my take.
Wow, those are very nice points. Nice point. Hassan, anything you'd like to share? Very nice points. Thank you. Hassan, do you have something to say? Your takeaway, probably? Hassan, you're muted. Are you there? Right. Leaders, thank you very much for coming. It was nice hearing you and whatever you shared. That was amazing that you are learning. Please take time to share until we meet next Monday. What you need to do is to read the notes. Take your time, read it through and through again until we meet on Monday in the discussion time. God bless you so much. Until we see you on Monday, have a great week ahead. Bye-bye for now. Same time. Next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.